Guys, I apologize for a little bit late, but we'll get this going and get it started. All you guys, Dion, Chris, Rob, thank y'all so much for your help. I really appreciate that. So this is going to be our first Khemetic fellowship, and Chris, is that mic picking up okay?
Yep.
Okay. This is going to be our first Khemetic fellowship, and the reason for doing this is actually just getting people. Hey, Roger. Just getting a place where a lot of us can meet. I mean, a lot of us end up being in pockets all around the country, all around the place, and we don't have any place that we can go and meet. So we're going to start that here in Dallas, where we can just get some people, we can get together, we can come meet each other, fellowship, talk a bit, teach a bit, and there's a lot of high-powered people here today that I really appreciate. So thank you very much. I'm going to be starting out doing this, and I'm kind of like, I'm not much, I would like, if you got questions, you guys please ask. I got a whole setup ready to go, but just talking, I can do that, but if you want to stop me and ask questions, then I'm all for that, so please do. Let's see, so I guess without further ado, we can get going. So this is going to be about Khemetic and African spirituality. And the reason why I put those both together is because the Khemetic stuff is really, it's about Africa, so a lot of it. So basically, why should you be interested in the Khemetic knowledge? And one of them is the Abrahamic religions of Judaism, Christianity, Islam. The whole foundation of all this is from Kemet, okay? So all of the Bible, anything that you can think of that is about those three religions had their start in ancient Kemet, okay? So you'll gain also the ability, with this information, you'll gain the ability to fact check Christianity. Now for me, Christianity, I talk more about Christianity because that's what I was raised with. So I don't know a whole lot about Islam. I studied like connections to it, but as far as just the other religions, I really hadn't delved into those. And Christianity was something for a long time that I was really passionate about. So that's the direction that I come from with this information. Also, this is more of a bridge from religion to spirituality. So the Khemetic stuff will help bridge you there. So Khemetic, really the principles of Khemetic spirituality originated in interior Africa. Okay, so all of the stuff that we're talking about here, it is Khemetic. But there are a lot of systems that are actually older than Kemet. The Ifa religion, Yoruba, both of those are a lot older. And the systems that were a part of that, of those systems, they filter into the Kemetic system. So when we're talking about Kemet, we're really talking about information that was all over Africa. So if you really want to know what the African spiritual systems were like before colonialism, the Khemetic system actually gives you a window into that, to understanding what the systems were before colonialism. So these ideas were all over Africa. It's not just about Kemet, and a lot of times what people want to do with African information is they want to give, if one place is exceptional, then that one place is exceptional, but nobody else is. Okay, everybody else is just normal or backwards or whatever. And that's not the case when you're talking about these spiritual systems. So they were all over Africa. What that means for the Kemetic stuff is that it's just a mouthpiece for Africa. So everything that is about Kemet it was something that started in ancient Africa first. Okay? Or all over Africa. All right. Now, this is one of the things that's kind of near and dear to my heart is when we mention Kemetic, a lot of times there are so many people that are at odds with Christianity. And we really don't have to be. And people get adversarial towards Christians. And we don't have to be. Because really, when you really understand the Khemetic information and the Khemetic knowledge, you'll find that there are a lot of connections. And when you really want to think about, I guess, an analogy of what Christianity is to Kemet, Christianity is more like being in elementary school or grade school. Okay, that's the level of the knowledge. Khemetic is more being in college and you can gain a PhD from it. Okay, so the foundation of Christianity was Kemet. Okay, so again, a lot of us that call ourselves Khemetic, we end up being so angry after we leave Christianity that we take that adversarial position. And again, no need to do that. And the other thing is when you really think about it, a lot of us really have this idea that we want to wake up our brothers and sisters that are Christians. First of all, they're on their own journey, so let them and love them where they're at. The ones who want the information, then you have to be educated enough to basically speak to them in an intelligent way and be able to answer their questions, okay? So, let's get into the Khemetic principles. Now there are 7 of them, 7 basic principles, but we're just, in the interest of time, I'm just gonna hit on 3 of them that are really important for us as far as just everyday living. So, for ancient Kemet, everything in the universe is conscious. Everything in the universe is consciousness. So there is nothing for them that is not alive. We think of life or something being alive as flesh and blood, plants, animals, stuff like that. But for the ancient Africans, everything was conscious. Okay? So that's the foundation of their thought. And if you think about it, even with other cultures, they always had a reverence for nature. They always had a reverence. So everything was their brother or their sister. They knew that they were connected. And that's the same way it was in ancient Kemet and ancient Africa. For them, there was no difference between being physical or spiritual. There's no difference between the metaphysical and the physical. So a good way to think of that is the body is as spiritual as the soul, and the soul is as natural as the body. Okay? So everything is connected. In a lot of ways, Christianity, what they did was they separated a lot of these ideas for a lot of reasons, a lot of political reasons a lot of times. So you are a soul having a human experience. And that means that we don't have a soul. And that's one of the things that we're taught with Christianity is like we have a soul. But it's something that we have to aspire to get to later, or something that you have to rise up to. No, it's your everyday. You're a soul every day, and that's how you experience life and how you experience the universe. So how did Africans think different than early Christians? And what Christianity did was they changed many of the ideas because of theological feuds with the Gnostics. So a lot of the stuff that we really get from ancient Kemet today, the really in-depth stuff, was passed down through the Gnostics. So the Kemetians were their teachers. Okay, but Christianity, the early Christian fathers were actually Gnostic. They started out that way, and then they eventually needed to consolidate power in a hierarchy, and that's when they started to change a lot of the ideas, the spiritual ideas.
Rich, would you define what a Gnostic is?
A Gnostic, thank you, Chris. A Gnostic is, they were Greek, and in ancient Egypt, a lot of them were Jews that were Hellenized, and Hellenized means they were from They were Jews, but they were from Greece, okay? And a lot of them took up residence in ancient Egypt. But a Gnostic was somebody who believed that that knowledge and wisdom came from within, okay? And that's where really Christianity ended up kind of going against the Gnostics, because they didn't want individuals saying that, hey, I can find my wisdom, and basically I don't need anybody else, or I don't need a church or a pastor. But a Gnostic is somebody that basically believed in gnosis, which is knowledge from within, or wisdom from within. Okay. So Christianity essentially despiritualized a fringe aspect of Kemeticism. So when we're talking about these ideas that were in the Bible, that are part of Christianity, the whole idea of the Kemetic spiritual system was widespread. Unlike us today, we separate science, medicine, and theology. In ancient Kemet, that was everything kind of went along with each other. Everything was intertwined. Okay. Christianity, then they despiritualized it. They created a hierarchy in the Catholic Church, okay? And then they created the religion over a period of time, and then they repackaged it and gave it back to the world as Christianity, okay? And that's what we have as our religion, as the Christian religion today. So let's get to the basic foundations. First of all, is there any questions about anything?
We got a question from the chat. This may be something you want to touch on a little bit later, but the question is, why are the Egyptians or Kemetic people portrayed as evil or negative?
Betrayed.
Why are Kemetic people portrayed as evil or negative? A lot of that has to do with
That's what he said, betrayed.
the what now?
Why are they portrayed?
Why are they portrayed as evil or negative? And I mean, there could be a lot of reasons, but if you know that as a Christian and in the Bible, supposedly the Jews were held captive in ancient Egypt, and of course, ancient Egypt became the whipping boy for the feelings about Christianity. Go ahead.
And to add to that, to look at it historically, if you look back at the Hyksos invasion of Egypt or Kemet, about 1670 BC. So you have these people known as the Hyksos that basically came to the outskirts of Kemet. They were in danger of famine. They were brought in during the interim between one sultan or ruler and another. They took advantage of this and basically invaded and took over. This is the actual historical and factual story of what's portrayed in the Bible. As the
now they were asking what made Kemet the evil empire, I guess you could say.
So after these people were finally expelled, they took their own version of the story, and as that progressed and as history kind of got rewritten, we have the different version that's in the Bible.
Okay.
So that was kind of the jumping board from that, as Kemetic people portrayed as the oppressors versus the people that were actually invaded and oppressed for nearly 12 years.
Now I know, Dion, you had some ideas about that as well.
From a Christian point of view, let's look at that first. First of all, when you start out in the Bible, you know, it starts out about Adam and Eve, and then you go through the story of Abraham and how Abraham went to Egypt. You know, we go to that story, and then we get to the story of Jacob and also Moses, you know, being in Egypt, and then Moses, you know, being portrayed as, you know, the deliverer, bringing them out of Egypt, into, you know, into quote unquote God's divine, you know, power and love, and you know. Well, what happened was, we have to understand, first of all, when they were in Egypt, and we know that the Bible is pretty much
It's mythology. Yeah.
When they were in Egypt, the problem was that the Moses himself you know, he had to gain knowledge from somewhere.
Right.
And that knowledge that he gained came out of Egypt. It came
Right.
from Egypt.
Right.
So when he got out of Egypt, well, what's the first thing that a God has to do? He has to now condemn where they just came from.
Right.
And if you read the Bible stories, the Bible story talks about how Egypt was considered, you know, a negative place, a bad influence, you know.
Right.
So,
Right.
so what they was doing was they was killing everything that they learned in Egypt,
Right.
and now they was creating a story for themselves.
Right.
So
Okay.
that's how that ended up happening, and that's the reason why
There was
now.
a need for an adversary.
There you go. And that's the reason why now Egypt now is considered, in a Christian point of view, a sinful place.
Okay, gotcha.
Right.
Okay, all right. All right, let's go ahead. So the history. So we got some, like I said, I got a lot of guys here. I know that they know their history. Now, so getting back to the spirituality. Okay. So what I'll be doing is looking at Christianity in contrast. So how was it in Christianity? What was it, and then what was it before it became Christian? Okay, so that's the idea. All right. So one of the things that we hear in the conscious community a lot is that we say the idea that we are gods. Okay, and for a Christian, that is blasphemous. I mean, that's just like, man, how can you even equate yourself or put yourself on the level of gods? So the idea of a god for the Christians is this big white dude in the sky that's looking down on us. He's psychotic because one day he loves you, the next day he's gonna send you to hell for masturbating or something. I don't know, but you know it's always kind of a love-hate relationship. All right. So the Christian idea of God became that it was something different, or God was something different. He was something different than we. Okay, something different than us. All right. And even this guy was jealous of his own creation, which that never made a whole lot of sense to me. You created everything and then you're jealous of it? Okay, that makes a whole lot of sense, but not really. But in ancient Kemet, it was real monotheism. Okay, when you say monotheism is a belief in one God and one power. Now, if you hear people talk about ancient Kemet, even still today, when they talk about ancient Egypt, they talk about ancient Egyptians believing in many gods. That is false. And that was because of the ancient Egypt, or the Egyptologists misnamed the idea of a netter, which is essentially an archetype of energy, in a sense, or how energy basically filters down into physicality. Okay, and there are different ways that this can be done. But ancient Egypt believed in one and only one source of all creation. Okay. So one of the first Egyptian netters was Atum. Okay, and Atum is for ancient Egypt was the first impetus, and this stuff really gets very technical. If you really get into it, all of the Egyptian mythology is essentially about it's about numbers, and the mythology really tells the story of how these numbers basically come together and create the universe. And Atum, the first mythological figure, is really about the mathematical idea of coming out of a monad. And I'm not going to get too technical into that, but the ancient Egyptians talk about Atum as the idea of being masculine and feminine. Okay, so in other words, the everything that was possible had to exist in this particular entity, or this particular idea. So it had to have masculine and feminine, and then it filters down into physical reality. The ancient Egyptians knew that these ideas were more about math So it wasn't, it wasn't about, like the Christian idea about God, was that it was a he, that it was a God. The ancient Egyptians and the Khemeticians, it was more mathematical. And they used the mythology to explain the math, okay? And that's the foundation. And a lot of people, they get lost in the mythology, and they want to make the mythology the story, and the the end point, and it's just not, okay? So Atum is also, Atum is a cognate of, or Adam is a cognate of Atum. So when we're talking about the biblical stories of Adam and Eve, that is literally the Christians or the Gnostics came up with the stories of Adam and Eve to explain certain ideas, okay? But Atum and the idea of masculine and feminine became the Adam and Eve of the Bible, okay? So Rob, is there a question or something?
We actually have a couple of questions in the chat. I'm not sure if you want to maybe save this for a little bit later, or if you're gonna touch on this.
If it's on what I'm talking about now, or the spiritual aspect.
Two main questions we got are, how can a person consciously begin living these principles? Which I think
Okay, and I'm definitely gonna touch on that.
And did the Khemetic people have the equivalent of the Holy Spirit?
Yes.
We know that as the Holy Spirit is a spiritual act that awakens the presence of God in man and allows man to know that it's God. So
Okay. So yes. So any idea that is a part of Christianity, they got it from ancient Kemet. So we're talking about the idea of the Holy Spirit, absolutely, and I can touch on that. But if you wanted to equate what the Egyptians thought of as the Holy Spirit, that would be wrong. Okay? And when we're talking about the Holy Spirit, we're talking about in this sense, again, when we're talking about the science, there was different parts of creation. So we had Ra, we had Atum, we had Ptah, we had all these different aspects, but they were all just different aspects of one, and how these aspects filtered down to create reality. Well, the building block of creation was the stuff, or the stuff that built creation has to be, was spirit. Not only the spirit was it like a building block, it was also the nourishment of creation, okay? And that's what Ra was, okay? Let's see, so were the Africans arrogant when they were saying that we are gods, or is that idea an arrogant idea? And for them, it was not about arrogance. It was not trying to equate themselves to God. It was a logical progression. Okay? So if there is only one source, then everything that is a part of creation is that source in another form. And that's really it. So how those forms end up forming, they get into the science of that. It gets very, very technical. But ultimately, if there was only one source, then that source is a part of us. Always is a part of us. Okay? And so that gets into, again, when we get into how the physical body is created, or the parts of the physical body. When we, as Christians, we think of us as a soul and a body. In ancient Kemet, we are 9 parts. So there is 9 parts of us. I mean, we got the soul, the body, the spirit. So you talk about a lot of different things, but all of those parts are all infused with the Creator, or with everything that was part of the Creator. So are we gods? Yes. We are that. And are we the same magnitude as the Creator? No, but the Creator is a part of us. Let's see. One of the things that the Gnostics and then the Romans did, and then I guess the teachers or a lot of the Catholic Church did, was that they started humanizing the idea of God. So what the ancient Egyptians used as mathematical constructs and talking about energy, the Christians and the Gnostics started to humanize it. So the Africans would actually talk about and teach these ideas, and one of the ways that they did it was that they would use human aspects or aspects of animals that they could equate or give you an analogy of what this mathematical expression of the Creator was like. So, for instance, if the idea of consciousness being a part of us and all-knowing, they might say God sees all. That didn't mean that God had eyes like a human. It was just the idea that consciousness was aware of all.
Right.
Okay. One of the ideas about the origin of God, and I hear this a lot in the conscious community. People say that that God is a black woman. And again, I understand the idea that the first aspect that the ancient Africans equated to God was the ability to birth, okay? The ability that everything came out of a womb, okay? In the womb was darkness, all right? So, of course, dark is black. But it wasn't saying that God was a woman, but it was trying to give the students an idea of what pre-creation was like, okay? So when we're talking about the feminine aspect, it's not, the divine feminine is not female. It's simply the idea that it is something that is within us, male or female, okay? So again, it's just part of that logical progression. Because we are goddesses, we literally have the ability to create in our level of physicality as God did in the universe. Now, I'm one of these people that when it comes to a lot of the woo-woo stuff, the subtle ideas about energy and stuff like that, I'm a skeptic. And I have always been a skeptic. So I needed proof of a lot of these metaphysical ideas. So when somebody said that we are creator, I'm kind of like, how can you, what do you mean by that? What do you mean, is that even real, okay? Proof. So one of the things that I did is I started looking for that. And how did modern science look at this idea? And modern science is actually starting to catch up with the ancient ideas and ancient spirituality. But the proof that I got was something called the double slit experiment. Okay? And I'm going to ask you, when you leave here today, when you click off the YouTube, please go and look up the double slit experiment. And it was something that they first did in 1920. And what the double slit experiment did was science actually proved that everything that was possible exists in a state of now, okay? Everything that's possible exists in a state of now. But to form or to make it concrete, to make it physical, it only becomes physical when we observe it. And that observation means from our thoughts, the way we think, the way we look at the world. But our physical brain literally takes the information that is metaphysical and then coalesces it into the physical. So we literally create it as we go, okay? So every day we have the ability to literally create and recreate what our life is like. The deal is that who we are, what we think, and what we believe 95% of it is on automatic pilot. So that means that 95% of our thinking, we don't even consciously think about it. So what we're getting in our life every day is what's usually on automatic pilot. So the idea is that we have to figure out, so the 95%, we can consider that in the shadow because we're not really aware of it. But how do we make it, how do we become aware of it? So that's the question. So this goes back to somebody asked earlier about how do we make this information and how do we take it and use it daily? How do you become conscious of your shadows? Now, if we're talking about creating our own reality, and we're talking about living life every day in a conscious manner, you have to be aware that life is literally your inner world being projected out.
That's right.
So your most intimate thoughts, your most intimate beliefs are what construct your life every day. So if you want to become aware of who you are being, okay, not just thinking, because that's thinking a lot of times comes from our conscious mind. We can consciously think about something every day, or every hour, every minute. But who we're being, that's on automatic pilot a lot of times. We have the ability to change that, but we have to become aware of it. And if you're getting something you don't like in life, then that means that there's something in you being projected out or being projected out that you don't like. How do you change that? The first part is becoming aware of it, okay? Once you become aware of there's something that I don't like, then you can start thinking about, okay, well, how do I change that, okay? And I'm gonna give you a little bit on that later, so somebody remind me of that. How can we change that?
I think we got a question.
Okay? Yes, sir.
You had mentioned evidence of metaphysics. Can I add one other thing that people might want to look at?
Okay, evidence of what now?
Of metaphysics and how.
Metaphysics, sure.
The scientific evidence that we look for is not something that's out there in fairy tale land somewhere.
Right.
Noah did a series called Making Things Colder several years ago. And it talks about what happens as we bring the temperature down to absolute zero. And how everything in that environment becomes omnipresent. So you can exist in 8 or more different places at one time, and this is what won the guy his Nobel Peace Prize. And so we're actually now able to create computers. I think there's 2 of them right now. Google has one, and the Air Force, where they actually have a super cold computer where you can actually write 2 bits of code. It can inhabit the same space at the same time. The principle that we thought couldn't possibly happen. But this only happens as things get colder. It might happen at the other extreme where fusion is, but we can't get anything that hot to determine and study it. But there are actually computers, and they show you how to get down to that level. It's quite fascinating, and even as powerful as that double slit experiment is, this one goes into it deeper, and how at every stage of cooling down to that absolute darkness, that absolute coldness of a tomb, where we used to go meditate, that's where I think we'll find even more evidence to support this.
Yeah, now, no, and that's excellent. It is fascinating, and all of it, all of these ideas, when it really comes to the science of it, it becomes fascinating. I mean, and just everyday life. I said a lot of times, a lot of people a lot of people enjoy drama, you know? And so it's like they can't live without it. And my theory on that is that people's life a lot of times is so mundane and so boring that they need drama. That's their excitement. Well, when you get on this journey of spirituality, and you get on this journey of becoming awake and becoming conscious, man, it is so fascinating that you literally, every day you're like, wow, Okay, wow. Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, okay. Wow, that person right there, yeah, they just showed me something about myself. So it's fascinating.
So I want to make sure that we captured what Brother Humphrey said.
Okay.
Was that Nova?
Nova, yes.
Nova, okay, because I wasn't sure if it was, if we're actually
Making
counting.
Okay.
science, making things colder on PBS.
Okay?
Things colder.
Make
And then
things-
I had a question too, Reginald, if you're cool with it.
Yeah, yeah.
So in the metaphysics that I've studied, you have your own personal beliefs that you can be accidentally creating from. And you can also be accidentally creating from your inherited beliefs.
Yes,
Can you
yes.
speak to that a minute and how limiting that is?
Okay, so when you're talking about your own beliefs, as we get older, the world starts to interact with us, and we start to change things here and there about what we believe on some level. But the first part of your beliefs are literally what your parents give you. Okay, what your parents give you, what your community gives you, so a lot of different, so that's your foundation. Okay, and Christian, you were asking about just about how that works with us, or
No, I just think it's important to talk about, or it has been important for me to understand that it can be stuff that happened to me throughout my life that forms the beliefs that I'm creating from. It could be stuff that happened that's passed down in my family culture, or ancestral patterns that are
Yes.
included.
yes,
And so I think as we move along the journey, we start, peeling the onion. And it's like,
Exactly.
here's my stuff, oh, there's my mom's stuff, holy crap, there's that thing from
Right.
sometime in the past. I think it's important.
right, yeah, definitely, and an analogy of an onion is great, because that's literally what it is. It's like you literally are peeling different parts off as you uncover your beliefs. And once you peel one part off, then doggone it, there's something else, and you're literally battling that a lot of days. So beliefs and us constructing our reality is really the foundational piece. And that was a part of ancient Kemet, is that everything that is a part of our life is literally reflecting back our inner world. Okay? So that was one of their foundational pieces. Okay? I was gonna give a good movie to also look at that is What the Bleep Do We Know? And What the Bleep Do We Know talks about the science, really, of spirituality. So if that's a good resource for you to kind of to look at, and it'll go more into quantum physics, because this stuff is literally, they're literally talking quantum physics. Now, I know this screen is probably a little bit hard to see, probably can't even see it, but the idea that the ancient Egyptians knew this concept that we literally form our reality. If you look up the glyph of Asar, or Osiris, as the Greeks call it, the glyph is literally an eye and a seat. That's really powerful, because when you think about it, if you look at how they define the eye, they really define that glyph as the eye as something that literally bends the metaphysical into the physical. And I'm kind of putting that in another term, but it literally bends light, and it literally bends the metaphysical and formulates it into our physical reality. So what they were saying is that on some level, the idea of Asar or Osiris is the idea that perception is what creates reality. And they use the eye as something, as a signal or a sign for us to kind of look at that, okay? So when we say, come to the idea, how powerful are we? And if we are truly gods, then we literally have the ability to create. So, and that's not just make-believe. And if you think about it, your attitudes about life really form how you feel and how you think about your day. You know, so you literally, if you'll notice, and I'll give you like an example. Anybody ever bought a car, and you're on your way to work one morning, and all of a sudden you start to notice the cars that are just like the one that you bought. Now those same people have been going to work with you every day. But now because your car is in your awareness, now all the other cars are part of your awareness. So you literally, it's like those cars now appear, whereas before you were blind to them. That's a simple idea, but it's really powerful. Because depending on your mood, depending on your thoughts, depending on your beliefs about everything in your life, that's what you're going to focus on. Okay? You all of a sudden you got that new car, and now you can see all the other cars just like yours, different colors, everything. And you can start to see all the color cars just like yours when you couldn't see them the day before. You know? So that's a powerful idea. It's a simple one, but a very powerful idea. All right, so another contrast. So one of the other things that as growing up as a Christian that I realized after coming out was how Christianity impacted what I thought about me and what I thought about myself. One of the things that is really going to be important moving forward with these ideas is the idea that you literally have to have a high self-esteem, or I would say a high spiritual esteem about yourself, okay? That means believing in your reality, believing in your inner workings, okay? Your inner connections, all right? So when Christianity, they literally taught us, thank you, Chris.
Like,
They literally,
get out of the pen there.
Chris had to build a cage because I'm always moving around and walking around. So, but you literally, man, I lost my thought there. But in Christianity, we had to check with the Bible. We had to check with our pastors, the deacons, a lot of times to validate what we thought about the world, you know, or how we were going to even move through the world. All right. So it really put you in a position of invalidating your own thought processes, invalidating what you felt, what you believed, and how you move through the world. So one of the major scriptures that I looked at as far as Christianity was Proverbs 3:5. It says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding." That means don't lean on your own beliefs, and that was something directly aimed at Gnostics, because Gnostics were like, man, gnosis is about knowing and knowledge within us. Okay? And Christianity was like, no, you need to come to your pastor, you need to come to a priest, you need to come to anybody, but don't lean on your own understanding. Okay? And it teaches, Christianity taught that, and I have to use words that are part of, I guess, religion, because we have an understanding of it, and one of those words is faith. The idea of Christian faith was that you just believed in something with no knowledge, no checking on it, you just accepted what somebody told you. That was Christian faith, which we all know, all of us that are out of that know that was nothing but mind control. It was a part of mind control. And go ahead, Ron.
I was going to ask, also would it be fair to say that the Christian or Catholicized version of religion, having faith in something outside of oneself
Yes.
versus having the faith of the God within?
Exactly. Good point. Yeah. So the belief was that God and everybody was outside, or all things that had a say in your life was outside of you. So having faith outside yourself. Whereas in the Kemetic way, that was different. So in Christianity, also one of the things is that the best Christians were the ones who lived without questioning. As long as you had faith, then you didn't need to question anything. You just accepted it on faith. And so that was a lot of the ways that they set up Christianity. Really, the least knowledgeable were the best Christians. There's a lot of the ways that they set that up. So knowledge became, if you really think about the story of Adam and Eve, what was the reason why they were kicked out of the Garden of Eden? Ate from where? The tree of knowledge of good and evil. Okay? And they were kicked out.
We had another question about inherited beliefs, but I think that may be something you're going to speak on in a second. But
Okay.
kind of in conjunction with this, I would ask the question, is there a difference between belief and knowledge?
Belief and knowledge.
Yes.
So, in the sense that we're talking about Christian beliefs, absolutely positively. Okay? And again, when we're talking about religious beliefs, it is the idea that you just accept it, that you're going to accept what you really accept somebody else's spirituality is really what happens. Is you literally accept what somebody else's spiritual experience. Now, when we're talking about knowledge, I break that up into two parts, because we got to consider there is knowledge and wisdom. Okay? So when we're talking about knowledge, that's something that we can accumulate. We can go through a day, we can read from a book, and we can gain knowledge. Knowledge can be powerful, but only when you can apply it. So when we're talking about wisdom, that was what the ancient Khemeticians taught as the highest level of learning. That was what the Gnostics talked about as far as gnosis, having knowledge of self. Okay? So wisdom was the idea that it was the inner contemplation of knowledge. So you took knowledge, and wisdom was something that you gained from your experience of life. The knowledge that you moved through the world with, you tested it. And as things would happen, as life would happen, you would learn from it. Or not. And then you would gain wisdom wisdom through your experiences. Okay? So knowledge is definitely more powerful than belief. With beliefs, you're controlled. Or you can be controlled. Because somebody can tell you what to believe. And that's essentially what happens with Christianity. You're told what to believe. And you said, did you have another part of that, Ron?
Well, it was that the sister asked, speaking on, kind of going back a little bit earlier, speaking on inherited beliefs, can you speak on about what Khemetic people thought about certain expressions of sexuality, such as homosexuality?
Well, this is this is the idea. So they were consistent on what they believed, okay? So when we talk about monotheism, there was only one creator. And what I've seen with Christianity and a lot of the ideas when it talks about sexuality and homosexuality and stuff like that, that Christians came up with the, or seem to be with the idea that God created what I liked, but what I didn't like, God didn't. Which is there one creator, or was there another one over in another county creating what you didn't like? You know? So either you're consistent with that, and you gain the ability and have the ability to love all of creation, all of what you would call God's creation, or you don't. Which way are you going to live? So are you going to be hypocritical? The stuff that you like is good and okay, but the stuff that you don't like is not? So, you know, that to me is what really what it comes down to. For me, everybody is part of creation. And I choose to love who they are, where they are. Whether they be gay, lesbian, whatever. I love who they are, where they are. And I can accept who they are, where they are. And hopefully they can accept me. What I found though is that most Christians, or well, I say the vast majority of Christians can't accept that I don't believe in Jesus. You know? So at that point, I become expendable. That's dangerous. And I think that's proven throughout the world where we have different religions basically killing each other in the name of their God. You know? So it's a slippery slope.
We got one more comment that kind of goes along with that, but your thoughts on it. So kind of with that being said, we have a comment from a brother that says Christianity was set up to transfer personal control of self to a ruler or rulership.
I could agree with that.
Could
I
you
could agree with
expound on
that.
that?
So the idea was, and this is the whole idea even why Jesus was invented. Because Jesus, there was never a person named Jesus that ever lived, that ever walked this earth. And I can say that with 100% certainty. Especially when you can go back into ancient Kemet and look at where these ideas came from. But the Catholic Church had to invent the idea of Jesus in order to confer authority to the bishops. They literally had to invent the idea that Jesus gave information to Paul and Paul gave it to somebody else, or Peter, and Peter gave it to somebody else. Okay? So that's how they came up with, or where they first came up with the idea. And at that point, they started to split off from the Gnostics because the way that they looked at it, there was one God in heaven, and then the bishop was God on earth, basically. So they conferred that authority from God to the bishop through Jesus. Okay, did I answer that question? Or?
Yes, sir, you definitely did. I would just add that, you know, going back to definitely what you said earlier, because all of this was copied from Kemet, they thought that they were using what they were doing because basically we knew everything was a part of what we call God. The Sutan was one of the representations of that. Them trying to copy what they were doing, that's how they use that same, you know, diagram, so to speak, or example, you know, to confer power to them.
Right. Yeah, and a lot of it too, the doctrines that came down was just plain due to plain ignorance and stupidity. There were certain ideas that a lot of the Christian fathers, they just didn't understand. And when they didn't understand it, they put in their own interpretations. Okay? So when you really start to look at the way that a lot of these guys think, Irenaeus, Tertullian, a lot of those guys, They were just, the only way I say, they were just ignorant. And when I say ignorant, they just didn't know. And they didn't understand how these ideas worked, okay? Let's see, so I already said the Khemetic, the highest form of wisdom, the highest form of learning in Kemet was wisdom. So you gain your own wisdom through your life experiences. And wisdom is knowledge that is, wisdom is knowledge, the inner contemplation of knowledge, okay? So why is this important for everyday living? So when we're talking about gaining wisdom and gaining our living every day, we have to have esteem. And I say esteem is just belief in yourself, belief in who you are. You have to have your own personal esteem, or people can dictate to you what you believe and what you think and how you move through the world. I see that in the African American community, we especially are used to being told what to do. And we accept people telling us what to do. And a lot of times it's just easier to accept being told what to do because you don't have to take responsibility for it. One of the things that you will learn is that when you switch from a religious idea, it's not about you following rules anymore. It's not about you accepting what somebody else is telling you to do, because that's really, a lot of times, as a Christian, I can use the excuse, well, that's what God wants me to do. Well, that's what God told me to believe, or that's what the Bible says. I don't even have to think. It's already being told to me what I should think and what I should believe. When you move into more of a spiritual way of living, you become your God. You become your creator, and you are responsible for you. You are responsible for all aspects of your life, changing those and the ones that you created. The stuff you liked and the stuff you didn't like. Guess who's responsible? The relationships that broke up, the men that you have in your life, the women that you have in your life, all those people that you chose them for a reason. And you are responsible for your choices. Not only are you responsible for your choices, you're responsible for fixing them. You can't say Jesus fixed him. Jesus fixed her. That goes out the window. Okay? But it's a powerful and empowering way to be. Okay? So you have to have a belief. You have to have a strong belief in who you are and be able to appreciate who you are. In Christianity, you were taught, and stop me if you've heard this before, I'm nothing. What was that? I didn't have to finish it. So you basically go around every day saying, I am nothing. I am nothing without God. I'm nothing without Jesus. I'm a wretch. I want to know if there's anybody in here or anybody out there that will wake up every day, look in the mirror, and say, I am nothing. And expect to go through the day, feel good about your day, and feel powerful. I am a wretch. We already know that doesn't happen. And in Black community, a lot of times the conscious community really gets on us. Talk about us in a bad way. And then, but we don't consider the psychology that religion has done, or what religion has done to us psychologically. How do you, one, start a business, for instance, if you feel like you're nothing. Okay? You might could even go out and start a business. But anybody that is an entrepreneur knows that a business is going to have its ups and downs. If you feel like you're nothing, when the business goes down, you start it, but when that business has its downswing, something goes wrong, it's not working. All of a sudden, that program starts to run. Maybe God is punishing me. Okay? Man, I can't fight God. I'm nothing anyway. So when that takes that downturn and you feel like you're nothing, you quit. You can't even keep going. So if you have those programs running, how do you build communities? How do you build relationships? Because a lot of times, even the relationships that we deal with, we're literally connecting with other people through our traumas, through our pain. A lot of times we're taught that somebody else is supposed to rescue us. If you're thinking that way, that you're helpless, that you're disempowered, then in a lot of ways you're going to end up just the way that Christianity taught us. We end up thinking lowly of ourselves, and we end up beating ourselves up. Any failures don't become a tool for learning. Any failure becomes confirmation for who we are as nothing. Yes, sir.
Can you speak on that, the paradox of that statement, I am nothing without God? Because there seems to be a truth there, but it can be a thoughtless truth, and it can be used two ways.
I agree with that.
If you can speak to that a little bit, I think it might help.
Well, the truth of it is that we wouldn't exist without God. So a paradox, and what I call a paradox, it means that it's this and that. Okay? So it can exist in all forms. So in the idea that I am nothing without God, absolutely. I could not exist without the aspect of God within me. But God is not outside of me, so therefore, if God is in me, going back to what we were talking about at the beginning, I am a God. Okay? So with that said, I am a creator. And Chris, you wanna say something? Sorry.
Oh, I thought Brother Humphrey brought up a good point, and that's it. Depends on how you take the statement and what stage of your own unfolding you're at. Because you could say, like if somebody says you're nothing without God, that's diminishing.
Correct, yeah.
But when you ascend to the understanding that you're the way that the divine is showing up in your own form, then that's expansive. So both of those things are true at different levels. It's both damaging and freeing at the same time.
Right, it can be. Like I said, it depends on your level of understanding, your level of thinking. If you're coming from a negative perspective, it is damaging, definitely.
And I think that's what I'm free. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, I was just letting him explain that, because I know there are a lot of people who, they come from that understanding that they're nothing without God, but in that same teaching, they're nothing. And they can't get over the fact that if they truly believe God is all that there is, and from God all things came, it shouldn't be a question about whether or not I'm God's stuff. Right, absolutely. But we need the help in transitioning from Christianity to that place beyond Christianity.
That negative dogmatic thing. Back here,
Yeah, I think it's alluding to what he was saying on the paradox, is that what's actually happening is that when we say we're nothing without God, we have a tendency in America here and the way we were raised to interchange that with Jesus.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
So that's the problem.
Yeah.
So even though, like you say, we can't exist without God, the prime creator, but we've been so attuned to
That's a good point.
thinking in terms of Jesus.
Right.
So we're basically
Equating
saying-
Jesus with God,
with God.
and then I'm nothing without
So we
Jesus.
use that and change it. So-
Yeah.
So that's.
Excellent point. Excellent point. Yeah. Somebody had a hand up
So,
back there?
yes, basically Christianity teaches, sin, good, evil,
Mm-hmm.
heaven, hell.
Mhm.
So can you just, verify the contrast and differences as far as how the Khemetic principles do those things?
Sure. So when we're talking about those ideas, and those again, when we're talking about sin, heaven, hell, all those ideas were a part of ancient Kemet. But the idea of sin was more of a mathematical concept, okay? And let me explain that. When we're talking about the original source, okay? The original source was oneness. Okay, so it was without form. It was one, and we can just say that and the ancient Egyptians called that noon. The idea that oneness was actually negated by duality, or the idea that it was separated or opened. Okay, is the way that they looked at it. But oneness was negated. Through that negation, the idea of a form or a form of the Creator actually came down into matter. Okay? So in that sense, oneness was no more. So sin was not necessarily something, or the idea of negation was not negative, it was just part of creation. Okay? So that's even where, if you talk about negation, the idea of Satan. If you look up the old idea of Satan, from a Hebrew word, it meant adversary. Okay? So it meant something that was against or opposition, and that was more the African idea. It was opposition. So sin was not something that, or a sin, or the idea of man being born in sin, the original sin. Those again were all ideas that were Khemetic, that were twisted by Christianity. As far as heaven and hell, this is a lot of times too where I can look at the Bible and I can find nuggets in the Bible that basically will disprove a lot of what people are being taught about or as Christians. And heaven is one of those. And anybody can look up the scripture, especially in the King James Version, Luke 17, verse 20 and 21, and tell me where the Bible says that heaven is. Now, we've been taught that it is a land of milk and honey, a place of gold, and all of that stuff. But what was actually taught in Kemet, that heaven is something that is within you. It is a state of being. Okay? Even if you read scriptures that Jesus talk about how you even get to heaven, it says you have to be like a little child. Heaven is a place of being joyful, joyous. Okay? So all these ideas that became part of Christianity were twisted so you could get your reward when you die. Even if you think about dying and going to heaven, Christianity says if you accept Jesus, you are saved or you have salvation. The ancient Kemetic way, salvation had absolutely, positively nothing to do with being saved from heaven or being saved from hell. Salvation was the ability to, when you die, your spirit was released and getting prepared to go and live another life or to be resurrected. Okay? So all of us that are sitting and watching, guess what? You're already saved. You're living this life. You got a chance to do that. And the ancient Khemetic way of thinking, living life was a gift. Okay? Living life was something that you got a chance to do. One of the things about living life, or the idea of us as a soul. As a soul, we come here with a life theme. I'll just call it a theme. That we come here to learn certain things. We come here to experience certain ideas. But as a soul, you literally learn through opposites. Okay? Hey, let me finish. I got you. So when we talk about learning through opposites, if you want to learn how to love yourself, guess what? You're going to be put in a situation where everything is coming against you loving who you are. Guess what, black people? Okay? If you need to learn self-sufficiency, you're going to be put in a situation where you're having to depend on, or feel like you're having to depend on somebody. Okay? Guess what, black people? If you're going to learn these ideas, you're going to be put in the place where you are going to struggle against them. That is your adversary. That is the sin that ancient Kemet will be talking about. It's not about you doing bad and being sent to hell. It's about you as a soul struggling against what you need to overcome to learn your lesson and to gain your wisdom. Yes, ma'am.
So that's what I was going to ask, just for clarification. So when we talk about our soul coming here, there's a theme to learn certain things, right, to help our soul evolve, right?
Correct.
And so that's what the concept of sin is. It's just the opposite.
It's just the opposite. It's the adversary.
So to live in sin is to live a life of opposites, which have truth.
It's not living a life of sin. It's a mathematical idea, a construct of you having something that comes against you. And that's what Satan is. It's an adversary. In Christianity, you don't have any power over Satan. Hell, God don't even have any power over Satan. I mean, if you really think about it. So, but in this form, in this way of thinking, you are no longer a victim. Because you are a creator, you came here to learn something, and you've been put in the position to experience it a certain way. And once you overcome that, that's where your wisdom comes from. Okay?
And just real quick, also too, we talk about good and evil, or heaven and hell. So I came to like my own conclusion that heaven and hell is a state of consciousness.
Absolutely.
But then also too, like at one time I was studying the Hermetic principles, and there's the law of polarity. So is that just the Christianity way of kind of like indirectly portraying this law and how it works within our life?
Yes. So a lot of the Christian ideas are based on Khemetic teachings. But they changed it in some kind of way. Even if you look at the story of Adam and Eve, okay? Adam and Eve, if you look at it from the Khemetic and the Gnostic perspective, there's absolutely some powerful teachings there. But if you take it as literal history, it becomes something totally different. It's been used basically to subjugate women, okay? But from a Gnostic perspective, the story of Adam and Eve were really about physical man, okay? So think about this. When did God come and take the rib from Adam? What was happening? He was asleep, okay? So common man, when you're in the physical, until you wake up, you're not conscious. You're asleep, okay? So supposedly God came and sent Adam a helpmeet. Well, guess what? The helpmeet was feminine. That goes back to what I was talking about earlier. The feminine literally is not literally, the feminine is just symbolic of the idea that we have to go within ourselves to awaken. The helpmeet is the feminine aspect of consciousness, of masculine outward turning consciousness. The ancient Egyptians called it Ma'a, M-A-A. That means outward turned. Okay? Well, guess what the feminine aspect of that idea is? What do they call it? Ma'at. Putting that T on the end makes it feminine. That makes it something that you turn within to connect with. Okay? So all those ideas, again, if you look in the Bible, and if you understand the symbolic aspect of it, there are a lot of things, again, we don't have to be adversaries to Christianity. We just got to know the truth. That's all it is to it. We just got to know the truth. Okay? Let's see, where else?
Rich,
Uh-huh.
you mentioned the scripture a while ago, I think it was Luke
17, verse 20 and 21.
20:21.
Uh-huh.
And I went ahead and pulled it up. If you want me to read it, I will, because I know that when I was a Christian, if you used the scripture, then you didn't read it, I didn't cut you off.
Okay, all right. Don't cut me off. Go ahead and read it. Go ahead and read it.
Hey, we gotta be real, right?
Yes,
This is
Yes, sir.
the
Yes, sir.
information that we were given.
Right, absolutely. No, that's good. Thank you.
It says, neither shall they say, lo here or lo there, for behold, the kingdom of God is within you. And his disciples said, and he said unto his disciples, the days will come when ye shall desire to see one of the days of the Son of Man, and ye shall not see it. So that's 21 and 22.
Okay, so basically, the kingdom of God is within. So heaven is within. Okay? Now, you don't hear that scripture taught in church, I'll guarantee you. That will not be talked about in church. Because if it is, it takes away a control mechanism. You can't get to heaven. You got to be good. You got to do what I say in order to get to heaven. Well, Christianity fought again against the Gnostics and that idea that heaven is within. No, man, that's our domain. People got to get there. Matter of fact, you got to be saved. Guess what you need to be saved? You got to accept Jesus. You know. So all those ideas, yes, sir.
And I think that kind of is answering the question that was posed in the chat. But we have a couple of questions. First, going back to one of our sisters, she said, did the Khemetic people believe that God, or the infinite mind that we call God, had a purpose or a program for our existence and the existence of all mankind?
That no, okay? And I'll say no because that's the idea of the Christian God, that God outside of me has something that I need to do for it or him, okay? I need to make sure that I'm following God's purpose, that thing outside of me. But the problem is that there are so many people, and how many times have we heard famous celebrity singers or musicians that sang in the church, that they wanted to sing R&B or they wanted to sing something else. And people will tell them, that's not God's purpose for your life. You need to sing in the church. You need to sing some gospels, some spirituals. They were miserable until they went and did what they did and they became who they became, the people that we hear about. Usually, God, in the Christian world, God's purpose is somebody else's idea of the way you should live. So in Kemet, did God have a purpose for us? God is us.
So with that being said, and kind of going back to what you were saying earlier, and we're having this experience and going along on this journey, I think this may segue into another question / conversation that's going on in the chat. So we have another, person that's joined us that is saying, how do, I'm sorry, give me just a second. How, in fact, do you know that what you stated about heaven, that is a state of being? How do you know that for a fact? And can you kind of expound on that?
Okay, so when we think about, again, usually that question, what I hear is the idea of something that is physically oriented and something that is tangible, touchable. Okay, so how do we know that heaven is a fact? Okay, or how can we know that heaven is within us? So again, from the Khemetic perspective, we are a soul experiencing physical life. Okay, so as a soul experiencing physical life, believe it or not, as a soul, it still communicates and it still experiences through us every day. And it's things that happen so naturally that we don't even consider it. But it's something that's within us and it's subtle. When we're talking about the idea, we talk about, as Christians, we talk about the idea of God talking to us or God communicating to us. Now, if you listen to the Catholic Church, God never communicated to anybody after Jesus. It was never communicated to anybody on earth except the bishops. Okay? It's not true. How do you know that heaven is within? And again, you got to consider, you have to reorient yourself to thinking about how you are energetically manifesting life every day. When I say energetically, our emotions are literally our physical translation of energy, of the universal energy that flows through us. Okay? Our emotions are that. So when we're talking about connecting to the higher realms and things like that, you literally are going within and tapping into those realms. That's the only way you can get there. So energetically speaking, your subjective experiences are what's real. And let me go to Kemet to solidify that idea. I talked about Ma'at a little bit earlier. Ma'at is feminine. It's a feminine expression. Okay? It's a feminine netter. Or another way to say that today is it's archetypal. Okay? It's the way that energy manifests in our way. So when I say archetypal, one way we use that today is we consider the idea of zodiac signs. Okay? Zodiac signs are simply archetypal, or a way to describe how energy manifests in the physical. I'm a Scorpio. Okay? People are, I know Pisces and Tauruses and all that. All that is just an archetypal way that energy manifests, and we know how that energy interacts with us. Okay? Ma'at is an archetype of an idea. Ma'at is consciousness. Okay? So when we hear people talk about the definition of Ma'at, what are some of the words that we hear? Justice, truth, okay? Huh?
Balance.
Okay, balance, okay? Harmony, all of those. Now, if Ma'at is feminine, and feminine just means symbolically that it is something within us, man or woman, and it's man, it irks me to no end when people try to make feminine female, as if females only have an inner world. And yes, I know, brothers, a lot of times we'd rather go explore outer space than we would inner space. But my eye is feminine, a feminine aspect of us, within us. If my eye is truth, then that means that that inner aspect of us is truth. That means our subjective world is our truth. So how can we know that heaven is within us? By how we're feeling. That's our truth. That's our state of being. We're in heaven when we're feeling a certain way, when we're doing certain things. I'm in heaven when I'm in Barnes & Noble around a whole lot of books. Okay? Or I need some chocolate chip cookies and milk. I don't need it, but man, I can't help myself. Okay? That's a state of being joyous to me. Okay? So that's how you know heaven. It ain't some place that you touch. It touches you. Okay? And touches you from within. All right. Man, I really didn't. Really didn't expect that I was going to talk this long, but hey, I'm cool. Y'all all right? Okay. So let's touch on this idea. This is one idea again. The idea of spreading knowledge. And again, in the conscious community, a lot of times we just say spread knowledge, spread knowledge, spread knowledge. As African Americans, we have spread knowledge for a lot of years. And economically, we are no better off today than we were 50 years ago. So I'm going to submit the idea that spreading knowledge ain't enough. We can be like librarians, okay? And we can be like a librarian in the sense that we can hoard knowledge. We can read all kinds of books, but if we don't apply it does us no good. We've been left information on the spiritual system that really talks about and deals with all things psychological at the nth degree, to where it does help you create, okay? But we have to apply this knowledge. We have to become less like librarians and more scientists. Okay? And when I say a scientist is somebody that basically uses scientific method to move through life. They hypothesize, they experiment, they observe, and then if something's not working, they try something else and hypothesize again. Okay? It's not just getting knowledge and then going and telling somebody about it, because that's what we want to do. That lifts our ego a little bit. To go and tell people, hey, you should do this or you should live like that. Do as I say, not as I do. You know? So instead of being librarians and just spreading knowledge, how about let's become scientists and let's learn this knowledge and use it and apply it. Okay? Go ahead.
So does this go back to the question that you told us to remind you about earlier, where I believe someone asked, how do we change the energy? Okay. So is that becoming scientists, not just not just being a wealth of knowledge, but being able to apply it? Being able to apply it.
Excellent point. Yes, absolutely. So since we're saying is this about applying the knowledge? And is it about more than just hoarding it, reading books, okay? And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that we don't need knowledge. That's not what I'm saying. But remember what I said earlier, wisdom is the inner contemplation of knowledge. You go through life and you experience, and then you gain wisdom from your experiences, okay? And if we're creators, there is no way that we can live our lives as victims, because those two states can't exist in the same space. Either you're a creator or a victim, but you can't be both. And if you choose to live a Kemetic-centered life, you have got to become responsible for your own journey. You can co-create that journey with others, but you can't sit around and blame others. Okay? So you have to make it about you. Now, this is a tool that I give you for using this and using this idea, especially the idea that you're a soul that came here as a theme. Okay, and I'm about to wrap up here. So the idea that you came here to learn something. So there's a question that you can ask, especially when something happens tough, man. Maybe you might go through a heartbreak, you might lose a job, lose a friend, whatever, lose some money. A question you can ask as a perspective of a soul living a thing is this. What is this situation or person teaching me about me? What is this situation or person teaching me about me? In other words, how are these symbols that show up from within you trying to show you about you? When you ask that question that way, I promise you it will reorient your thinking. You can't say, man, she did me wrong, the last lady did me wrong, that, people are doing me wrong. Well, let me say this, especially because relationships are usually some of the things that are our toughest teachers, if we learn. A lot of times what ends up happening with relationships is that we end up meeting the same type people. They just have different bodies. The same things that happen in the last relationship happens in the next relationship. Okay? Unless those two people conferred before meeting you and was going to put you through the same hell, the common denominator is you. So if the same things are happening, then that means that you have a lesson to learn. And the lesson is going to repeat itself until you learn. So it goes back to that question. What is this situation or person teaching me about me? Start to ask from that perspective, from the perspective of a soul that is learning. And I promise you, it'll reorient you. I want to give you give you a tool or a research tool about souls. And there's a book called Journey of Souls by Michael Newton. And again, this is for the skeptics, because believe me, I am that. I am a skeptic. But the book is basically about a guy that was a hypnotherapist that basically hypnotized people and took them into the life between lives. Okay? I know a lot of people probably don't consider the idea that you have lived over and over. Because again, that idea with Christianity is one of the few systems that did not believe in reincarnation. And it was expedient for them not to, because they couldn't send you to hell for eternity. So you think about it, if you could die, you knew you could die and you came back, you'd be like, okay, man, I guess I'll get a chance to do it over. But if you're in the Catholic Church, man, those are dire consequences. Okay? So the Journey of Souls is an excellent book that will give you some insight, scientific insight into your life as a soul. It's good. It's good. So you'll enjoy it.
Who's the author?
Michael Newton. Michael Newton. And And again, that was something that I needed. So I couldn't just accept the woo-woo without something. But that gave me like a scaffold, basically, to start to move into different directions on that. So, again, what we learned, well, if you want to learn more about a lot of these concepts and how Christian dogmatic teachings came the way that they were, connecting them back to ancient Kemet so you can learn the true spirituality. I do have a website at Khemetic Living that I write, teach a lot of different things. I also have a course that I have created that basically connects a lot of these ideas that go a lot more in depth than what I was able to go here. So the course is the ultimate guide to Egyptian spirituality. And you can go to it again at KhemeticCityLiving.com, and then you can click on the link that says products, and you can go to that page. And today, the course is normally $79. For anybody that's listening today, or anybody that wants to get that course, if you put in a coupon code TRUTH, you'll get it today for $50. Okay? But it's an excellent course, and it again is about moving people from the dogmatic spiritual concept or dogmatic religious concepts and more into the spiritual concepts. Okay? Was there any more questions, or so I'm wrapped up, so I'm good. So, but if there's anybody had any other questions, I'll be glad to answer.
First of all, thank you. And I know this is something that we've talked about a lot, and I'm going to say it because I don't feel you should have to say it. You have spent years studying this.
Mm-hmm.
It's apparent, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
And one of the things that I also appreciate about you, brother, is that when you put it down, you don't just give this stuff away for free. Because we give stuff away for free, and then people take it, and then they think they know what they can do with it. So we're here to support you and let you know that whatever it is that we can do to help you get this message out, I'm gonna speak for myself. That's what I'm here to help.
I appreciate that. Definitely appreciate that. And it's definitely a lot of times, and I think that goes back to a lot of times as a people, we don't value who we are, okay? And we don't value, come on in, Eric, come on. So we don't value who we are. And a lot of times what happens is when we don't value ourselves, we don't value what we can do. We don't value our own skills, okay? We don't value the service that we give. And because we don't value it, then because we don't see ourselves as valuable, then we don't see that, hey, I can be paid for this. We can do it a lot of times in context of a job. But as entrepreneurs, a lot of times, and especially people who are light workers, that is a tough deal. Because we have something that we can give and something that's valuable. If it wasn't, people would not come to us. How many, I bet anybody in this room right now, you are one of the people that friends come to for advice. All the time. If they need to call somebody, I'll bet you're one of the people that they call. But they will take your time, but they will not compensate you in any way. And this is one of the #1 laws of the universe, guys, that we have got to get. What you put out is what you get back. That's the #1 law. So in other words, what comes from within you is what you're going to get back. If you have a broke mentality, You don't want to pay for anything. You hoard your money. You hold on to it. Guess what? The universe is going to hold on to it too. So you won't get back. You got to give. And guys, I'm going to tell you, it's not just about charging for money or anything like that. It's about understanding. I understand I have value and I give value. On my website, I give a lot of stuff away for free. People buy books that I recommend all the time. Okay? Because I want to give that knowledge. I don't hide where I got it from. Now, I do use my own wisdom to interpret a lot of this knowledge and information. I use my own wisdom to connect these ideas because a lot of times they can be ancient. The language can be archaic. We don't know what the stuff means because we don't even know what the word means. So I update the language. That's a skill and a gift that I have as a teacher. Okay? But we have to value who we are. And then we have to be able to value the people who are giving to us in our communities. We have to be able to circulate that the knowledge, the information, the money, all of that. If we have skills and we see our friends, our family with skills, help them. Compensate them. If they give to you, give back. That's one of the first laws that we have got to start to do in our communities is give back. And I don't know how many times I have heard that if we're talking about black communities, that black communities will not support people financially. That's got to change. It's got to change. All of you guys, all of y'all have gifts that can serve our communities. And I hope here, starting now in this community, you guys that have gifts, I know there are entrepreneurs here, guys that do air conditioning business, okay? Real estate agents, everybody, we got gifts. And hopefully here, starting here, this is ground zero for starting to help share and teach and build in our communities. But we have to support each other. We have to do that. All right? Well, hey, go ahead.
And there was a question here. Real quick, yes, thank you. Also, to put your Cashapp out there more.
Okay, and thank you. Yes.
Yeah, because I was like, ooh, it's so easy, especially for those of us who use all of that stuff.
Yeah, see, I'm an old head, so I don't always even think that way.
So when
yeah.
you sent it in an email, I was like, okay.
No, and I appreciate you too. So this sister has supported. So she's bought my course and
all
then
of them in the book.
yeah, hey, and I appreciate you.
No, because it's awesome knowledge and never mind, my next comment I'll say for after we're not on air. But but yeah, no, it's awesome. One thing that I just kind of want clarification on. I think like very general. Basically, knowledge is something you accumulate, but beliefs is something that's kind of given to you with the means of manipulation and control. Is there anything else kind of going into that? Because, I mean, from your knowledge, you do gain wisdom, right? And because you tested the knowledge, what you believe to be true, what you know it works, it also formulates our beliefs. So, I don't know, I kind of feel like the way that I heard it, I'm trying to word it in a better way because I don't want beliefs to be something, I feel like with beliefs you have to have a boundary, if that makes sense.
Okay,
but I don't want it to be seen as something like, oh, I can't believe in that because now it has this negative connotation.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Gotcha. So, in other words, you're like, when you think a thought and go, I need to suck that back in. You know? And I don't want to believe that anymore. You know? And understand that we're here because of beliefs in this physical body. Okay? Or I wouldn't say beliefs. Because beliefs are part of our physical mechanism. They're part of our brain. Okay? And beliefs are we have thoughts and then we have beliefs. Okay? Thoughts are always circulating. Guys, we pick up each other's thoughts. We pick up thought forms all the time. But they're so much a part of our everyday living that we don't consider it, we don't think about it, okay? It's just something that's so natural that we don't think about it. The difference between a thought and a belief is belief has emotions and imagination attached to it and definitions, okay? So what I mean by definition, if I cussed you out in Russian, you just look at me like, okay? But if you knew what it meant, then it would piss you off because you knew the definition of the words, okay? So when we define our beliefs, when we define things a certain way, we attach the emotions and the feelings to it. So we can have thoughts, and we do. We literally have 60,000 thoughts every hour. And those thoughts comes in words, they come in pictures, feelings. You can smell something, and it can actually change your mood. And if you're not conscious of it, you don't know what happened. You know, you can smell your grandmother's cooking, or something that smells like your grandmother's cooking, or something that smells like your grandmother's house. And it can put you in a certain mood. If it was positive, then you'd be in a positive mood. But if it wasn't, then you're in a negative mood and you don't even know why. Okay? So one of the things that you want to do is to become conscious of your state of being. And the way that you do that is you can monitor your thoughts. And I don't mean not monitor your thoughts, monitor your emotional state. If you're all of a sudden feeling like you're in a bad mood for some reason, start tracing back what you've been thinking about, okay? And that's a way that you can start to see what the contents of your mind is. And that 95%, it starts to become conscious, okay? So don't worry so much about thinking the wrong thing, because things don't manifest immediately anyway, okay? It's possible, but it doesn't. It usually takes time. But you can start to monitor what you're thinking about and what your beliefs are. When you interact with certain people, how are you feeling when you leave their presence? One of the things is the toxic people. I define a toxic person as if I leave your presence and say 95% of the time I feel worse than when before I got to you, then that person is probably toxic. So you need to watch that. You need to consider those people in your life and how they're making you feel. Yeah. So monitor your thoughts, monitor your emotions, and it will trace you back to your thoughts and your beliefs. Okay? Yes, sir.
Okay, so we had two last questions here. I asked the second one first. What's the best book we can find on Khemetic teachings? And as you stated, you have your course, of course, but would you also recommend some books to go along with that? And then the second question, to still kind of go back earlier, the sister said she, specifically, what was the reason for creating anything? What did they believe this infinite mind that we call God created for?
To enjoy. We create to enjoy. And if you think about it, you are in your most joyous state. And for no other reason, we create to enjoy our experience and enjoy who we are. And that's the same reason that the infinite creator created. It was a joyous thing to do. And there were no limitations. If you think about it, there is nothing that the infinite creator limited itself to create, or it wouldn't be here. Plain and simple. So when you're talking about creating, that's really one of the ways that you can find your purpose, is follow your joy. Follow what makes you feel good. And in Christianity, if you think about it, if something felt too good, What was it? It was probably a sin. Think about how that checked you. Okay? If it felt too good, it was probably a sin. Okay? So again, those are ideas that we're programmed that we don't think about. But follow your joy and you find your purpose. Or at least, if you don't find your purpose, you'll enjoy the journey.
That's right.
And that's really what it's about. So why did the Creator create? Because it enjoyed. That's it. And that positive energy is what creation is about. Okay? And what was the question before that?
What's some of the best books you would recommend to grasp the Khemetic teaching?
And see, this is the thing is, I haven't found one book or books that will give you the whole story or give you all the information or all the knowledge. And that was frustrating for me in the beginning, okay? That's why I ended up creating the courses that I did in my website, because I couldn't find good, solid information, or I could find good stuff, but it was all disconnected. And none of it connected Christianity. None of it that I had found connected why I thought like I did or why I believed like I did. Okay, so one of my most favorite books is by R.H. Lubitsch, and it is now I can't even think. I just drew a blank. But look up his stuff. R.H. Lubitsch is his stuff is excellent. But it is also a very difficult read. Okay, so they had to translate a lot of it from French. And a lot of times these esoteric ideas, there is no translation for a lot of these ideas, and we got to use almost a whole different language a lot of times. And he did. So his books were good. I'm Stolen Legacy. Okay, is a good book. Anything by Asa Hilliard. Is good. So those are books. But again, they're all kind of disconnected pieces. And so what I do is I take those pieces and then I'll get my inspiration, I guess, and then I'll put something together, and it works. Okay. So it's just, again, I have my own esteem. I have my self-esteem that when I get something intuitive, I know it's all right. I know it's good. But it's taken me a while to get to that point, to where I don't even question it. I just trust it. So when it comes to me, I just trust it and I flow with it. Yeah.
Have you ever heard of the book, A Metaphysical Interpretation of the Bible by Stephen, I think it's Harefield?
Never heard of it. Sounds interesting, though. Yeah? So a metaphysical interpretation of the Bible, and it's by who?
Stephen L. Harefield.
Stephen L. Harefield?
Yeah.
Okay.
And also too, I wouldn't mind sharing that, like if there's a group, because it's pretty expensive. But I have a PhD. No, Lord. He has a PhD, but I have a PDF.
Okay, gotcha.
Hey, that's a big
I'm just kind of putting it out there.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, I'm going to shut it down, because I know people got stuff to do. It's Saturday afternoon. I appreciate you guys so much for being here and being supportive. Again, I hope that we can build this. So next month, we'll do this again. What is this, the third Saturday?
Third Saturday.
Third Saturday? Okay, so next month, we'll do it again on the third Saturday. And so we'll keep doing it. And I apologize for being late on the stream. But man, we were trying to get it and figure out how to get it done. So hopefully we can get it done next time. It'll be better. Okay.
Yeah.
So moving forward. So thank you all again.
All right, thank you, sir.